Welcome, I'm Bruce Munro, and with me is International Relations Specialist Professor Robert Patman, and this is Global Insight. Welcome, Robert.
Morning, Bruce.
We're hearing today about a new security deal between Australia, the United States and the United Kingdom. This seems like a sudden announcement. Is this a new thing, and what's it all about?
Well, we understand that discussions were informally underway since March, and Australia seems to be the prime mover initially, but Britain also has been very keen, in fact taken something of a lead role once the process was underway. So this is quite a significant development. It pledges these three countries to cooperate in the areas of technology, advanced technology, industrial capabilities and also supply chains to enhance their cooperation. And it's pitched at the Indo-Pacific region. And the idea is they see this region as being, with some justification, as a major security challenge, not just because of the rise of China, but because there is unresolved territorial disputes in the region. And these three countries have come together, and the first part or the first offshoot from this agreement, this security pact, is an agreement to give Australia's submarines a nuclear powered capability. They stress that this is not Australia becoming a nuclear power, but that Australia's submarines can stay at sea much longer. And we've recently had the visit of the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier by the UK, which involved some cooperation with US forces in the region. So I think the feeling is that these three countries, by pooling their resources to some degree, with the US being in the lead, can enhance a presence which in their eyes protects or enhances the values and interests they stand for: freedom, democracy, and as they would put it, the rule of law. But of course, people outside this pact won't see those three countries having a monopoly on those values and interests.
You said that China is one of the reasons for this deal. How will China respond?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? China wasn't singled out in all three countries during their joint announcement, which was virtual. It wasn't pitched at any one country, but I think there's little doubt that China's the major concern. China now has one of the largest navies in the world, and it has unresolved territorial disputes. There is tension also with Taiwan and Hong Kong, and the territorial disputes relate to the South China Sea, where China, I think, has a 90% claim on all the area concerned. The slight complication is that there's about 6 or 7 other players that reject China's interpretation. So you can perhaps understand why the three countries have come together, but China's reaction will be interesting because China's not likely. For China, it may well reinforce nationalistic tendencies. Remember that China has painful memories historically of Britain's involvement in the Indo-Pacific, and so they may well project this as an attempt by countries such as Britain with an imperial past trying to recapture some of its past glories. But I think what we can say, and that's speculation of course, but what we can say is I think China will respond robustly to this and in a nationalistic fashion.
There is the Five Eyes agreement that includes Canada and New Zealand. So why hasn't New Zealand been included in this deal?
It's a good question, but you could also pitch it, why hasn't Canada been included? I think there are a variety of reasons. Firstly, in New Zealand, and it was a sort of formative point in our development as a country, has rejected nuclear power as being part of our security apparatus. We've gone for a non-nuclear security policy, and so there's no possibility, and we don't, have submarines. So from their point of view, if you like, the UK, Australia, and the United States, we have less to offer them military. I think a second reason, which is not unrelated, is that New Zealand takes a different view of the international security situation. We share many of the things with the US, Australia and the UK, but it was really striking when the United States invaded Iraq, for example, in 2003, we didn't join Australia and the UK in the invasion of that country. We saw that as a fundamental challenge to the rules-based system and rejected it. I don't think we have any illusions about China as a country, but I think New Zealand much prefer a more broad-based multilateral approach. New Zealand is developing close relations with Japan. Japan hasn't been included in this Indo-Pacific Security Pact. And I think New Zealand is very conscious, perhaps more sensitive than Australia is, to the views of other players in the region and how this will come across. So I think New Zealand will retain its close relationship within the Five Eyes in intelligence sharing, but will choose to project those values and interests and its commitment to a rules-based order in a different way. After all, New Zealand doesn't necessarily believe that some members of the Five Eyes are as consistent as they should be in upholding the rules-based order. After Brexit, Britain's commitment to the Good Friday Accord has been ambiguous, and we saw in the United States recently that there was an attempt, it looked like, on the 6th of January to overturn the results of an election, which is anathema to people in this country. So, and Australia, we also have some concerns about the way they've been treating asylum seekers. So I think New Zealand has taken a broader view and believes it's possible to pursue its security interests without involvement in a tight security-based alliance of this sort.
So we shouldn't feel left out. We should perhaps be quite happy not to be invited even.
Well, I think it's potentially a problematic arrangement. There's two immediate problems. We've already mentioned China's reaction, but that's not the biggest problem, really. The biggest problem is that Australia is probably going to have to break an agreement with France, which was to provide it with diesel-powered submarines. This has become protracted. The deal was signed in 2016. It's become protracted because Australia insists on many of the components being produced in Australia, which elongates the deal. And also, it's a challenge to nuclear proliferation. I mean, this is a precedent, isn't it? Where Australia, which is a non-nuclear power, is getting nuclear-powered submarines as part of an international arrangement. Well, just imagine the reaction if Iran chooses to do the same. This is a precedent. Iran could cite the Australian case. And so I think many people who are interested in non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction will be deeply concerned about the implications of this. And the other thing is, this does look to many people in the Indo-Pacific as the empire striking back. A series of English-speaking countries which are coming together to assert their interests in the region. So it could politically backfire.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Catch us next time on Global Insight. Ka kite anō.